Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back with our new lecture of Industrial Pharmacy Form 612. I am Shoaib Mohammed, lecturer in the Department of Pharmaceutics, Faculty of Pharmacy, University of Sindh. The next chapter is compression and compaction, and the material for this chapter has been taken from Tutorial Pharmacy by Cooper and Guns and Theory and Practice of Industrial Pharmacy by Leon Leckman. This is the outline of the lecture. Firstly, we will be having a brief introduction of the chapter. Then we will be discussing the solid-air interface. Then we will be discussing determination of flowability of the powders, that how the flowability of powders can be determined. Then we will discuss the different mass volume relationships. Then we will come to compression. Then we will discuss consolidation, and finally we will be concluding our lecture. So now firstly the introduction. Now in this chapter we will be having a better knowledge of these three things. Number one is the compaction, second is the compression, and third is the consolidation. Now firstly, what is compaction? The compression and consolidation of two phases due to applied force. Okay, when we apply force, as a result of it there will be compression and consolidation of two phases. Now what are those two phases are? Number one is the particulate solid phase and second is the gaseous phase. So there will be compression and there will be consolidation of two phases, that is the particulate solid phase and the gaseous phase, as a result of applied force. Now what is compression? Now compression, it is the reduction into the bulk of the material as a result of displacement of the gaseous phase. Now as we discussed in the compaction, there is application of the force on two phases. One of them is solid phase and next is the gaseous phase. Now when we apply force, the particles will come in contact with each other, will come closer to each other, and the gaseous phase that is present in between them will be removed. When the gaseous phase will be removed from the between the particles, the bulk volume of the material will decrease. Okay, now for example, we have a measuring cylinder. Okay, in that we have particulate matter. Okay, now that measuring cylinder is filled with a powder material up to 100 ml. Now for examples, if we are tapping it for 5 minutes, eventually there will be a time when the filling of that measuring cylinder will decrease. It will may come down from 100 ml to 95 ml, because of the tapping the gaseous phase has been displaced. Okay, because the continuous tapping was providing a force and the particles will coming in close contact with each other. Now, similarly, if we put a pressure on that measuring cylinder onto the surface of that powder, eventually there will be a time when there will be decrease into the bulk volume of the material, because the particles will be coming in close contact with each other and the gaseous phase will be coming out. Third is the consolidation. What is consolidation? It is increase in the mechanical strength of material resulting from the particle-particle interaction. Now, as we have applied force, now the applied force had first removed the gaseous phase. Now the particles have come in close contact with each other. Now on those particles there is a surface energy that is very weak. But when these particles will come closer to each other, their attractive forces as a result will increase, and the mechanical stress, their bonding with each other will increase, and particle interaction will increase. Now it will be rather difficult to separate those particles which have been consolidated, because now in between those particles the attractive forces have been increased. Now we will discuss in detail that why this compression, compaction and consolidation of the material take place. Now in that, the first is the solid air interface. Now when we have a material, which have a solid material, okay, now in that the particles or the atoms or the ions are having certain attractive forces. Now these attractive forces may be in between the atoms or ions of the same material, or maybe with certain other molecules from some other substance. Now as you see in this diagram at the right corner, above right corner of the slide, the particles inside this, the bulk of the solid, they are surrounded by attractive forces from all sides, from upside, from downside, from left, from right. Now these attractive forces may be from the same material, the particles of the same material, or these forces, attractive forces, may be particles from the other materials. But if you see the particles that are at the surface of the powder, they have a little bit extension of the attractive forces. Now this attractive force is in contact with the external environment. So what is solid air energy? It is the distribution of intra and intermolecular bonding between atoms or ions located at the surface of solid particles. Now these are some attractive forces that may be in between the molecules, okay, with each other, or with other molecules of any other substance present in that bulk of powder. These are unsatisfied attractive molecular forces extend out and at small distance beyond the solid particle surface. They are extending beyond the small particle surface, okay. If they are uh, in the bulk of the powder, okay, they may be distributed into all dimensions, okay. If that is the particle is onto the surface of the powder, these may be extended and spread into the surrounding environment, or they may be in contact with the container in which the material is present. This condition gives rise to free surface energy of solid, which plays role in interaction between particles and particles with its environment. Now as you see, the lower particles, the particles into this bulk, are interacting with each other, while the particles that are exposed to the external environment are interacting with the external environment, as well as they are interacting with the particles of the bulk. Now these attractive forces may give rise to different phenomena. These may include the adsorption. The adsorption property of the materials is also because of these attractive forces. Cohesion, adhesion, the rate of solution formation, the crystallization process are manifestations of this fundamental property of the solids. So in simple, the particles that are present into materials in the form of atoms, molecules or ions, they are having some surface energy. Now their surface energy may be in contact with the other molecules of the same material, or maybe molecules of some other material, and those attractive forces may be in contact with the surface of the container in which the material is present, or it may also be in the contact with the external environment. And these attractive forces or unsatisfied attractive molecular forces give rise to different properties of that material that includes the adsorption, cohesion, adhesion, rate of solution formation, crystallization, and many more. The two of the properties of the solid material because of these attractive molecular forces are the cohesion and adhesion, and these play a role into the compression, compaction, and consolidation. Now firstly, what is cohesion? Now cohesion is the unsatisfied bonding forces at the surface of particles which are attracted and tend to stick to one another. Now these attractive forces are in between same molecules. Okay, now for example, we have powder, okay, we have boric acid. Now the attractive forces between the molecules of boric acid with each other is called as cohesion. While what is adhesion? When particles approach to other types of the particles or solid surfaces, they are attracted to them, known as adhesion. Other types of particles are solid surfaces. Now that means the boric acid, when it will have attractive forces with the walls of the container, okay, it will be called as the adhesion. Or for example, in the same container along with the boric acid, some amount of the powder of the starch is present, and the boric acid is interacting with the starch molecules, there will be maybe some attractive forces in between them. Okay, so this will be called as the adhesion. So cohesion is the unsatisfied bonding forces between the same molecules of the same material, while adhesion are the attractive forces, maybe molecules of any other substances or maybe molecules of the solid surfaces, for example, in which the container, the material is present, it will be having some kind of interaction with the molecules of that container. Now these attractive forces may variably affect the material. This attraction may give rise to an intrinsic property to all bulk powdered solids, like they may resist to different movement of particles when they are subjected to external forces. Now for example, if these attractive forces in between the molecules and with the surface of the container are very much high, so of course we will be having a lot more resistance for flowing that powder into the flow of that powder, because there will be a lot more attraction in between the molecules, and when we will tilt the container, I will put force on external force onto it for the flow of that material, there will be resistance from the particles into the flow. Now these effects, these intrinsic property effects, may affect several operations like flow of granules from hopper or the feeders. Okay, if there is more attraction in between the particles, there will be less movement or difficult in the movement of the particles from hopper to the die cavity or to the feeders, or as a result the proper formulation of tablet will not occur. It can also affect into the process of the mixing. For the mixing, we need that the bulk, there should be proper movement of the bulk. Okay, so there should be more contact of the particles with each other, there should be distribution of the active ingredient with the excipients, so there should be proper mixing of the material. and if there are more attractive forces in between the particles, the process of mixing will become difficult, because the particles will be having strong attractive forces and they will not be separating from each other. And it can also produce bigger role into the production of the granules and tablets. Of course, for the formulation of the granules and tablets, if there is less attractive forces, the strength of the tablet will not be sufficient, the strength of the granules will not be sufficient, and if this strength is not sufficient, the granules and tablets will break down during the transportation and the manufacturing processes. Now, the second important factor is the presence of the adsorbed layer of the moisture. When there is presence of the adsorbed layer of the moisture, okay, the particles will be attracted to each other. There will be liquid bridge formation, which will hold the particles by surface tension. As a result, there will be difficulty into the movement of the particles, and of course the same problems like problems into the flowing, problem into the mixing, compression, similar kind of the problems will arise. So the attractive forces in between the particles is of very much importance for the process of the compression, compaction, consolidation, and eventually these processes are required for the manufacturing of the tablets and the granules. So we must have clear concepts of these phenomenon for the proper formulation of the dosage form. Now, next is the determination of flowability of the powders. Now, as we have earlier discussed, that the flowability of the powders is very much necessary because it is required for the manufacturing of the tablets, it is required for the manufacturing of the granules, and eventually the manufacturing of the tablets and the granules required good compression, compaction, and consolidation. Similarly, mixing is one of the very important steps into the manufacturing of the dosage forms. So flowability, the determination of flowability is of very much importance. So now how it can be determined? So there are various methods for the determination of the flowability of the powders, and one of the most common method is the angle of repose. Now what is the angle of repose? Now it is the maximum angle that can be obtained between the free standing surface of powder heap and horizontal plane. Now, for example, if we have a powder heap, okay, from that powder heap, we can determine the angle of repose, and from that angle of repose, we can determine the flow ability of the powder, that either it has a good flow properties, or it has a poor flow properties, or it has no flow properties. So, how it can be determined? So, we measure the height of the powder from the horizontal surface. Okay, so we have, for example, this is an standing powder. Okay, so we will determine with the help of a scale the height of this powder heap. Okay, that will be calculated as height, and the spread of the powder onto the horizontal surface will be taken as diameter. Okay, and then we will determine the angle of repose through this formula. The formula is tan theta is equal to 2h upon d, or we can take it as tan theta is equal to h upon r. So if we are taking the diameter, then we will put 2 and multiply it by the height, or we can simply take the radius and divide the height with the radius, and thereby we can calculate the angle of repose. So it is basically gives the qualitative assessment of internal cohesive and frictional effects. Okay, so because the resistance to flow will be because of the cohesiveness, because of the attractive forces in between the particles and the frictional forces in between the particles. That's why there will be difficulty into the flowability of the powders. So how can we practically determine the angle of repose? So there are three methods for the determination of the angle of repose. Number one is the hollow cylinder method. Second is the rectangular box method, and third is the fixed funnel method. Now into the next slides we will be discussing in detail that how these determination processes can be carried out. So the first method for the determination of angle of repose is the revolving cylinder method. In this method, a hollow cylinder half filled with test powder with one end sealed by transparent tape is used. So there is a hollow cylinder that is half filled with the test powder, and one end of that container is sealed by transparent plate so that we can see the movement of the powder inside the cylinder. The cylinder is then rotated about its horizontal axis until and unless the powder surface cascades. So if you see in this, the powder is half filled, okay, and it is covered by from one side by a transparent plate, so we can see inside this cylinder. Afterwards, this cylinder is moved along the or rotated or revolved along the surface until the powder starts to cascade. When powder starts to cascade, we will stop and we will determine the angle from here. This is the horizontal surface, okay, and from here to here we will determine the angle, and from that angle we can determine the angle of repose and eventually the flowability of the powder. One thing should be noted, that the curd wall is lined with a sandpaper to prevent preferential slip at this surface. Now the wall of this container is lined by sandpaper, because if we don't line it by the sandpaper, the powder will be just gliding onto the surface of the container as we are revolving the cylinder, and we will not achieve a proper angle for the determination of the angle of the repose. The next method is the tilting box method. In this method we are using a rectangular box that is filled with the test powder. Now again similarly, that box is lined with the sandpaper, so there should be no gliding of the powder with the surface of that rectangular box. Then we will slightly move the one side of that rectangular box up, and as we put the one side of the rectangular box up, there will be a point when there will be cascading of the contents start. Now when there is cascading or the movement of the particle inside the rectangular box, we will stop the tilting of the rectangular box and we will determine the angle with relation to this horizontal surface. And by the help of this angle we can determine the angle of repose. The third and the last method for the determination of angle of repose is the fixed funnel method. In the fixed funnel method, the material is poured through a funnel to form a cone on an inverted petri dish. So this is a funnel through which the material is poured onto this petri dish of fixed diameter. Stop the pouring the material. When test powder, it starts to fall down from the sides of the petri dish. Now when we are putting the material from the funnel above, it will start to pile up onto the petri dish, and there will be a point the powder will start to move out through the edges of the petri dish. Now at this point, stop pouring the powder. Now at this point, measure the height of the pile with the help of a scale and take the diameter of the petri dish as the diameter of the pile. Eventually put these values into the aforementioned formula, that was the tan theta is equal to 2h upon d, and it will be giving us the angle of repose. So if we have determined the angle of repose from all of the above methods, we can determine the flow ability of the powder. Now if the angle of repose is equal to or less than 40, the powder will have reasonable flow properties. If it is more than 40 degree, it will have poor flow properties, and if it is more than 90 degree, it will have no flow properties. Next is the determination of the flow rates, that at what rate the powder material will flow, and it can be determined by the compressibility index. Now what is compressibility index? It is the indication of ease with which a material is induced to flow. Okay, if for example the material is present in a container, and with the slight tilting of the container the powder starts to move, it is moving with ease. But with the slight tilting of the container, if the powder is not moving, the material is not moving with ease. Now it is given as percentage and determined by the given formula, that is I is equal to 1 minus V upon V naught into 100. Now for example, we have a measuring cylinder of 100 ml, okay, and it's filled by the test powder up to this level. Now this level will be taken as the initial volume, but after tapping of this measuring cylinder, the test powder, the level of test powder may come down to certain level. Now this level will be taken as the final volume. We will put these values into this formula, and thereby we can determine the compressibility index. Now if the compressibility index is less than 15%, the powder will be having good flowability and compressibility, while if it is more than 25%, there will be poor flow and compressibility. For the better understanding of the compression, compaction, and consolidation of the solid particles, the understanding of the mass-volume relationships is very much important. As you know, the volume of a substance is the space occupied by that substance. The volume of the substance may have different voids, and there are three types of the voids or spaces present into a substance. Number one are the open intraparticulate voids. These are the spaces inside the particles open to the external environment. Now, these voids or spaces are present inside a particle, and these voids, this is a void or a space inside a particle that is open to the external environment. The second type of the voids or the spaces are the closed intraparticulate voids. These are spaces inside the particles that are not open to the external environment. Now, for example, this is a particle, and inside that particle there is an space. Now, this space is not open to the external environment. So, these are called as the closed intraparticulate voids. Third type of the voids are the interparticulate voids, or spaces in between different particles. Now, for example, this is one particle, and here is an other particle. So these 2 points of these two different particles, this is particle number 1 and this is particle number 2, and in between these two particles this is a free space or a void that is present in between two particles. These voids are called as the interparticulate voids. So the intraparticulate voids are present within the particles or within a same particle, while the interparticulate voids are the spaces present in between two particles. So depending upon the particle properties, three interpretations of powder volume can be made. Now these interpretations are based upon the voids present in the powder, that include the open intraparticulate voids, closed intraparticulate voids, and the interparticulate voids. Now based on these three types of the voids, three different types of the volumes can be achieved. Number one is the true volume, that is represented by the Vt. It is the total volume which excludes all spaces greater than the molecular dimension. For example, if we have a powder, now if we exclude from it all the spaces that are greater than the molecular dimensions of that molecule or that substance, it will be called as the true volume. Next is the granular volume, that is represented by Vg. This is the cumulative volume occupied by particles including all intraparticulate voids but not the interparticulate voids. This include all intraparticulate voids. Now intraparticulate voids were of two types. Number one, open intraparticulate voids, means the void in the particle was open to the external environment, and also the closed intraparticular voids means the voids that were present inside the particle. But the granular volume does not include the interparticulate voids. the spaces that were in between two different particles. Third type of the volume is the bulk volume, that is represented by VB, that is the total volume occupied by the entire powder mass. That means it will include open intraparticulate voids, closed intraparticulate voids, as well as the interparticulate voids. These all spaces as well as the substance molecules will make the bulk volume of that substance. The other interpretation of the volume is the relative volume, that is represented by VR. The relative volume is the ratio of volume under specific experimental conditions to the true volume. Now, the volume of a substance in specific experimental conditions may be different, maybe because of change into the temperature or the humidity. So, in those conditions, the volume of the substance will be relative volume, that is represented by R, and will be calculated by V upon Vt, where V is the volume while Vt is the true volume. We can also determine the volume occupied by the voids by the given equation, that is the V is equal to Vb minus Vt. If we deduct the true volume from the bulk volume, we can achieve the volume of the voids. We can also determine the porosity of the substance. The porosity of the substance is to determine how much the substance is porous or the free spaces are present into the material. The ratio of total volume of voids to bulk volume of that material will give us the porosity, where E is equal to Vv upon Vb, where Vv is the volume of voids while Vb is the volume of the bulk. By putting the value from equation number 1 in the above equation number 2, E will be equal to Vb minus Vt upon Vb, that will be equal to 1 minus Vt upon Vb. While the porosity is frequently expressed as percentage, so E will be equal to 100 into 1 minus Vt upon Vb. As you know, the ratio of mass to volume is known as density of material. More the density, less will be the porosity. As we have earlier discussed, there are three different types of the volume: the true volume, the bulk volume, and the granular volume. Now, based on these three types of the volumes, the three different types of the densities can be interpreted. Number one is the true density, that is the ratio of mass to true volume. Next is the granular density, that is the ratio of mass to granular volume. And third is the bulk density, that is the ratio of mass to the bulk volume. Now, the effect of applied force on mass volume relationships. When any solid body is subjected to opposing forces, there is finite change in its geometry depending upon nature of applied load. Now, when we are applying a load or a force on a solid body, there is finite change in its geometry or its structure. The relative amount of deformation produced by such forces is dimensionless quantity called as strain. Now, because of that application of load or force, the amount of deformation that is produced is called as strain, while the ratio of force necessary to produce strain to area over which it is applied is called as stress. Okay, amount of deformation due to force is strain, and the force required to produce strain is stress, and its unit is force per unit area, and it is given by this formula. As we have earlier discussed that the amount of deformation is called as strain, while the force required to cause strain is stress. Now there are three commonest forms of stress that are given below for showing the change in geometry of solid body resulting from various types of forces. These include the tensile strain, compression strain, and shear strain. Now in this slide, the figure number A shows the tensile strain. Now in this, the dotted line shows the actual structure of the material. Now when the material is stretched at two opposite points, the shape of the material changes. It becomes from square to the rectangular shape. While in figure number B shows the compression strain. The dotted line shows the actual shape of the material, while when material is compressed from two different directions to a central position, again its shape changes and it becomes from square to a rectangular shape. While in figure number C, the shear strain is applied, which is applied from two different directions but opposite directions, and because of that there is a regular shape of that square shaped material. Now we come to our main topic of compression. The compression is reduction in bulk volume when external mechanical forces are applied. When we apply a force onto a material, its bulk volume will decrease. It can be result of one or more of the following effects. It may be due to the repacking, or it may be due to the deformation, and then there are further types of the deformation. Firstly, what is repacking? Main mechanism of initial volume reduction is onset of loading is usually done by closer repacking of powder particles. First stage of compression is repacking of bulk volume. Now when we apply force onto a material, as we have earlier discussed, there are voids in between the particles. There may be intraparticular voids and interparticular voids. When we apply force, these spaces are decreased and there is repacking of the particles. As shown in this figure, initially there is more space in between the particles, but when we apply force there is a rearrangement of the particles and the spaces in between the particles are decreased. Initially, when the load is decreased, there is repacking of the particles. But as the load increases, rearrangement becomes more difficult and further compression process involves some type of particle deformation. Now, the force applied is not utilized in the repacking of the particles, but the force applied actually causes the deformation of the structure of the particles. Now, this deformation can be divided into three types: elastic deformation, plastic deformation, and brittle fracture. Now as you see in this diagram, so firstly there was repacking. Now if more force is applied, there will be deformation, and that deformation may be elastic, plastic, and then there may be brittle fracture of the material. If on removal of load, the deformation is to a large extent reversible, the deformation is said to be elastic. In this type of the deformation, the material acts like a rubber. As we stretch a rubber and we stop application of the force, the rubber comes to its original states. So same is happening here with the solid materials. We apply the force, but after application of some force and we are removing the force, the material becomes to its original states, or at some extent, or it becomes to its original state. It reverses back to the original state. It is called as the elastic deformation. All solids undergo some elastic deformation like acetylsalicylic acid and microcrystalline cellulose. At a certain level of increased load, elastic limit or yield point is achieved, and load above this level result in deformation not immediately reversible on removal of applied force. So in plastic deformation, when we are applying force more than the elastic limit or yield, there is deformation of the material that will not be reversible for some time when the applied force is removed. In these cases, bulk volume reduction takes place from plastic deformation or viscous flow of particles which are squeezed into remaining void spaces resembling the behavior of modeling clay. So in this, as we are increasing the forces, more of the voids are filled up and the material behaves like a modeling clay. This mechanism occurs in material in which the shear strength is less than the tensile or breaking strength. Now what is dwell time? The time required by the punch to remain in force on tablet to complete the process of compression is called as the dwell time. Okay, when we are compressing a tablet, the punch should remain onto the tablet for some period of time so that there is proper compression of the tablet. If it does not occur, it leads to the lamination of the tablet. The dwell time moisture acts as a lubricant. Now, for example, this is the die cavity. Here is a lower punch, and from here comes the upper punch that will compress the material that is present over here. Now when the punch is coming down, it should remain for some time onto the solid material so that there is proper compression of the material takes place. Now if there is no proper time or no proper dwell time of the punch, there will be lamination of the tablet. The tablet will break into small layers. The third type of the deformation is the brittle fracture. When the shear strength is greater, particles may be fractured and the smaller fragments then help to fill up any adjacent air space. This occurs mostly in solids with hard brittle particles. So when more and more force is applied and the shear strength is greater, the particles will further break down and smaller spaces and voids will be filled up by that smaller particles and the volume of the material will be decreased. Now the consolidation. As we have earlier discussed, it is the increase in the mechanical strength of material resulting from the particle-particle interaction. It depends upon two processes that occur simultaneously. Number one is the cold welding and second is the fusion bonding. Now cold welding occurs when surface of two particles approach each other closely enough at a separation of less than 50 nanometer. Their free surface energy results in a strong attractive force. So in cold welding, when we are applying force, the particles are coming closer to each other and the free surface energy that is present onto the particles, they come in close contact with each other and the free surface energies act as strong attractive forces. The nature of bonds formed are like those of molecular structures of interior of particles. That means these bonds will act like the attraction of two molecules of same substance. Then the fusion bonding. When force is applied to bed particles which in practice are irregular. Under appreciable force, this causes generation of heat. If this heat is not dissipated, the local rise in temperature could be sufficient to melting of contact area of particles, which relieve stress in particle region. In that case, melt solidifies, gives rise to fusion bonding, which in turn increases mechanical strength of mass. So simply, in fusion bonding, when we are applying the force, that force causes production of heat. Now that heat, if not disseminated, if not spreaded into the surrounding area, will cause melting of that material on those spots, and melting of that material cause more mixing of the particles, more compaction of the particle and consolidation of the particles. Now the factors influencing the cold and fusion bonding. These include chemical nature of material, extent of available forces, presence of surface contaminants, and intersurface distances. The chemical nature is of very much important in the process of consolidation. If there are no attractive forces in between the molecules, so there will be poor formulation of the tablet because of poor consolidation ion bonding. Large surface area is required for good consolidation. So more the surface area, the extent of available forces will be more, and that will result into the good consolidation. If there are contaminants present on to the surface of the material, they will cause hindrance in consolidation. There will be poor bonding and poor tablet formulation. If there are certain intersurface distances in between the molecules, more distance between particles produce less bonding and less consolidation. Now the role of moisture in consolidation. At least some moisture is present in capsule and tablet formulas, and concentration well below 1% can dramatically affect behavior of feed material and that of finished product. A 0.02% moisture can affect proportion of applied force transmitted to lower punch. At 0.55% moisture, the behavior is in fact reverse of that for totally dry material. So at moisture of 0.02%, as we are increasing the moisture by 0.02%, the behavior of the material changes and proportion of the applied force onto the material also changes, whereby at a level of 0.05% total moisture in a material, the behavior is actually reverse as that of dry material. Means when the moisture level is at the level of 0.5%, there will be opposite behavior as compared to the dry material. The properties and actions of the dry material will be different, and the properties and actions of the material that is containing the same material that is containing 0.55% of the moisture will be different. Critical factor concerns the situation where the amount of moisture present onto the powder surface is just sufficient to fill the remaining voids in the bed. So if we have sufficiently compressed the material, the moisture present into the material will go into the voids, the spaces inside the material, and will be over there. As earlier said, when the material containing the moisture is compressed, the moisture goes into the voids. But if it is compressed more, there is increased compressional forces, the moisture will come at the surface of the tablet. The expelled moisture may act as lubricant at the die wall, but if it is an excessive moisture, it may cause the material to stick to the punches. In recent experiments have shown the effect of thermal dehydration on the crushing strength. of tablet made from certain hydrates. So if tablets are made from certain hydrates and the moisture present over there, and there is heat production, and from that heat production there is thermal dehydration, this will increase the crushing strength or hardness of the tablet. This strength depends upon the temperature at which dehydration is carried out. So temperature will affect the strength of the tablet and eventually the dehydration of the tablet. This dehydration is accompanied by change in the texture of the crystal, leading to more porous mass. And finally, the moisture is also important into the moist granulation that is required for the tablet. I will take up your questions into the coming Zoom class. So finally, conclusion of this lecture. So in this chapter, we were discussing about the compaction, compression, and consolidation. So before going to the details of the compression, consolidation, and compaction, we first discussed about the solid air interface. So into the solid air interface, we said that there are certain forces or attractive forces onto the surface of the material, and the particles of the material are in contact with the surrounding particles of the same material and may be in contact with the particles of the other materials and may be in contact with the surface of the container in which it is present. However, the particles that are present onto the surface of the material, some of the forces are extending from the surface of the particle and they are in contact with the external environment. Now, these forces were playing role in major properties of the material like adsorption, cohesion, adhesion, rate of solution formation, and crystallization. Two of the main properties because of these attractive forces are the cohesion and the adhesion. What is cohesion? When there is unsatisfied bonding or there is unsatisfied attractive force in between the atoms or ions or molecules of the same particle, it is called as the cohesion. While if these attractive forces are between the molecules of different materials, it is called as the adhesion. Further, in the solid air interface, we had discussed that these attractive forces also play a role into the flow properties of the material and eventually mixing of the material, compression of the material. Then we had discussed the determination of flow ability of the powders, that how the flow ability of the powders can be determined, because it is very much necessary because of the different processes of the manufacturing. The one of the most commonly method for determination of the flowability of the powders was the angle of repose. The angle of repose was the maximum angle that can be obtained between the free standing surface of powder heap and the horizontal plane. It was determined through the formula of tan theta is equal to 2h upon d. Practically, it could have been obtained by three different methods that included the revolving cylinder method, rectangular box method, and fixed funnel method. In the revolving cylinder method, we were using a cylinder which was covered from one side with a transparent plate. The cylinder was filled with the material, half filled with the material, and it was lined by the sandpaper. The cylinder was revolved and its angle when the powders started to cascade with the surface of the material, sorry, with the surface of the contact of the cylinder was obtained. The next was the tilting box method. In this method, there was a rectangular box which was filled with the material to be tested, and that rectangular box was also lined with the sandpaper. The rectangular box was tilted up until there was certain gliding or the movement of the powder material, and the angle of the rectangular box with the surface was calculated, and through which we could determine the angle of repose. The third method was the fixed funnel method. In this, the funnel was fixed over inverted petri dish, and the material was poured into the funnel, and the material dropped onto the petri dish. And as a result, a heap was formed. Uh, the pouring of the material was continued until the powdered material started to fall from the edges of the petri dish. So by this method, the diameter of the petri dish was taken as the diameter of the heap, and height of the heap was measured through a scale. So different angles could have been observed, and if the angle of the achieved is less than or equal to 40 degree, we could say that the flow of the powder is reasonable. If it is more than 40 degree, the flow is poor, while if it is more than 90 degree, there is no flow. Then we could also determine the flow rates of the material. The flow rates of the material could be achieved by calculating the compressibility index. What is compressibility index? It is the indication of ease with which a material is induced to flow. It is given as percentage and determined by formula of 1 is equal to 1 minus V upon V naught into 100. Then we discussed about the mass volume relationship. As we know, the volume is the space occupied by a substance. So the volume of a substance may contain three types of the voids. One are the open intraparticulate voids, other are the closed intraparticulate voids, and third were the interparticulate voids. The open intraparticulate voids were spaces present into the particle that were open to the external environment. Closed intraparticulate voids were not open to the external environment, while interparticulate voids were present in between two particles. So based on these three type of the voids, the three interpretations of the volume can be made. One was the true volume, which excluded all spaces greater than the molecular dimension. The granular volume included all the intramolecular voids that are the intraparticulate voids that are the open and closed, while the bulk volume that included all the voids, including the intraparticulate voids and the interparticulate voids. Then into the mass volume relationship, we also discussed the porosity of the material, that is how much the material is porous, and that was achieved through formula E is equal to V upon VB, where V is equal to VB minus VT. So if we put the equation in that formula, we achieved the formula as E is equal to 100 into 1 minus Vt upon Vb. So similarly, then, as we know that the density is the ratio of mass to volume, okay, and more the density, less the porosity. So as volume is an important factor into the density, so three different densities could also be obtained depending upon the three different types of the volumes. So there was true density, granular density, and the bulk density. Then we discuss about the effect of the applied force onto the materials. So when we apply force onto the material, there is change into the geometry of the material or structure of the material. The amount of deformation that is due to the application of force is called as the strain, and the amount of force that is required to cause strain is called as the stress. Now there are three types of the strain. Number one is the tensile strain, compression strain, and the shear strain. Then we discussed about the compression. The compression is the reduction in the bulk volume when external mechanical forces are applied. When external mechanical forces are applied, there are changes into the particles of the material. There are certain phenomena take place when we apply the force. The first is the repacking. When we apply the force, the spaces in between the particles and inside the particles are squeezed and these become small. If there is further force applied, rearrangement becomes more difficult and further compression process involves some type of the particle deformation. Now there are three types of the deformation. Number one was the elastic deformation, other was the plastic deformation, and third was the brittle fracture. Now into the elastic deformation, if we are putting force onto the material and when the force onto the material is removed, the somehow or on the larger scale, the material reverses back to its original state. While into the plastic deformation, when we are applying the force, the deformation causes somehow permanent change into the structure or the spacing in between the particles. Then we also discussed about the dwell time. The dwell time was the time required by the punch to remain in force on tablet to complete the process of compression. Finally was the brittle fracture. So when the force is more increased, there will be the breaking down of the particles that will be called as the brittle fractures, and the fragments of those broken down particles will be further filling the remaining of the spaces. Finally, we discussed about the consolidation. Consolidation is the increase in the mechanical strength of material resulting from particle-particle interaction. There were two processes taking place during the consolidation. One was cold welding and the other was the fusion bonding. During the cold welding, when the material particles were coming closer to each other at a space of less than 50 nanometer, the surface energies onto the particles turned into the attractive forces and the particles attracted each other, and a special type of the bond was formed that was acting as molecular attractive forces. While during the fusion bonding, when we are applying the force, there is production of heat, and that production of heat causes the melting at the surface of the particles. Now when there is melting of the surface of the particles, there is bond formation, because when the temperature is removed, the melt solidifies and there are strong fusion bonds formed in between the particles. Then we discussed about different factors that were influencing cold and fusion bonding. That included the chemical nature of the material, extent of available forces, presence of contaminant, and intersurface distances. Finally, we discussed about the role of the moisture. We said that if about 1% of the moisture is present in all types of the tablets and the capsules, and they are playing role into the feed material and the finished product. As the content of moisture increased by 0.02% moisture, there is relative changes into the proportion of applied force, and at a level of 0.55% moisture, the material acts differently or oppositely as compared to the dry material. When we are increasing the force for the compression, the moisture may go into the voids, and if there is further increase into the compression, the moisture will come out of the tablet and onto the surface and may act as a lubricant, or in certain other cases it may cause sticking of the tablets. However, in certain type of the experiments, it has also been observed that thermal dehydration during the tablet manufacturing from the hydrates, the thermal dehydration plays role in increasing the crushing strength or hardness of the tablets.